Wonderful. It's 6 o'clock. Thank you to everybody who keeps popping in and populating my screen. We have a really nice hour and 15 minutes ahead of you. So I'm going to get the ball rolling. All right. So thank you, everybody, for being here again tonight. We appreciate it. And part of the presentation this evening will be about how we have incorporated the input that you have provided thus far. So as you remember, it's only been 2 weeks, so I bet you do. We have a very distinguished group here to help us through using their professional expertise to give us input on the decisions that need to be made. You can see our goals. They have remained the same, and we've stayed very true to that. The group has been extraordinarily helpful in providing input related to all of these pieces. And you know that we're always going to start our meetings making sure that we're grounding ourselves in our 5 values, because as a school district, that is, or they are, together, collectively, the lens that we use to look at all issues that we are facing, and the pandemic is no different. However, in the pandemic, you can see on the white side of the slide, there are additional factors that we are prioritizing heavily as we move throughout this time period. And once again, our purpose, providing an opportunity for all participants in the medical working group to share their professional suggestions and input on how to get the OSD students back to school safely and keep them in school safely. So I wanted to show the medical working group where we are related to our current statistics. And you'll see that there's just a little bit of a change to how we are doing our data dashboard. And you'll notice that we have some of the things that you have seen before, such as positive staff cases at school, because there are still some staff members who haven't been in the buildings. Consequently, if they were positive for COVID, it would not be reflected in these numbers. Students that who are currently attending school in some way, shape, or form, that could also be students who are in a learning hub, right? So they come for a couple of hours a day to get specific support, but their main instruction is still online. If they have been in the building, they would be included in the positive student case data. And then we have also added lines specific to co-curriculars, because right now we have athletics in particular in full swing, and we wanted to make sure that we were telling a full and complete story related to how COVID is impacting our students and our schools. So we have added in a co-curricular line to separate that out from the instructional component. And quarantine, the same for positive cases, staff, students, and then students in quarantine due to co-curriculars. One thing to mention with quarantine is that it does include students who have missed school for COVID-like symptoms. And that may mean that they miss school twice for symptoms and they're tested and they're negative. But what it's really telling us is this number includes all of the students who have missed school for something related to COVID. You'll also see that we have now begun to use an asterisk for numbers that are less than 5, or less than 5, but more than between 1 through 5, because we have a smaller number of students now who are in co-curriculars, and we just want to make sure that there's never anything that could be identifiable. Our agenda for the evening. This is where I pass it on to our lead facilitator, Drew Howick, to talk about the night.
All right. Thank you, Leslie. And again, welcome everybody. Yeah, so tonight we're going to look at and follow up and update you on some things that we've already discussed. and get your reactions to some of the efforts, progress, and plans in these areas. The first is the community engagement process about ensuring our community works together. The second is about mental health. Again, update on the progress and plans for mental health issues being addressed by the district. And the third is on the grades 3 and 6. They have returned, and we want to provide you an update with those. The way we've structured this evening is that we will take these topics, and Leslie will provide a flyover of efforts, progress, and plans in them. She may be joined, she will be joined in several of them by other school district staff to talk more specifically, and then give you a chance to share your reactions, concerns, or any questions that you might have about these. So we are going to stay in a full group format throughout this meeting tonight. We should know that even though there's 3 topics, we are going to bundle the mental health topic and the returning grades 3 through 6 topic. Leslie found in working with RCI that they were just intricately linked. So we're going to work those 2 together. So there'll be essentially 2 topics, 2 chances for you to share your reactions to each of those following an orientation by Leslie and her staff. I think there might be another. Yeah. So before we do that, though, we'd like to open it up to any of you on the medical working group. If over the last 2 weeks, if there's any new information you would like to share that would benefit the members of the group in their work tonight or moving forward. Last meeting, we had a situation where I think it was John Temte shared some information that was timely. And so we were thinking that we'd allow about 5 minutes or so if anybody would like to share some information that has happened in the last couple of weeks that you think might be useful. So open mic.
I can speak to our COVID numbers at the hospitals are down, so that is encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody was keeping tabs on those, but
absolutely we are. That's good news.
Yeah.
Very good news.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Becky. Okay. We threw this topic in not knowing if there were any updates from everybody's perspective, but we thought we'd at least offer that opportunity. Okay. If not, let's talk about the first large group topic, which is encouraging our citizens to work together. And Leslie will provide an overview of that and listen towards the invitation of sharing any reactions, considerations, or concerns after Leslie and the group are done talking about this.
Thank you. This was our key question for our January 18th meeting. And it was a really interesting discussion. People put suggestions into a document prior to the meeting. And then at the meeting, we really discussed the options that had been shared or the ideas that had been shared, along with good conversation related to what we could do and what was probably most important that we do. And when we boiled it down to the essence, we knew that we needed to pay some close attention to helping people understand the importance of staying home when they were exhibiting any of the symptoms, really, because students will already know that they need to wear a mask, and schools will already be structured so that they are 6 feet apart. The really important decision that families need to make every day is, are we sure every person coming to school is well enough to be there? So, given the input from the group and the ideas that were shared, we came up with a few things. And I would say that our communications director, Erica Mundinger, has been the person who is leading the charge on ensuring we're taking some very concrete steps to help students and families understand our shared responsibility. So Erica, would you like to start talking about some of the things you've accomplished?
I'd be happy to. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. So we have come up with the Panther Pledge. And the Panther Pledge is the checklist that we have for students to take every single morning. So they pledge to take the pledge every morning before coming to school. And that means going through this 3-part checklist to check their symptoms, and then really focusing on if they have the symptoms, to follow the list, and to stay home if they're not feeling well. So kind of the key ideas behind the pledge that we want to get out to people are that we need everyone's help to stay in school and to stay safe, to keep everyone safe. Do the pledge before coming to school, and stay home if you're sick. So on the next slide, we have some of the tactics that we are using to get the word out, because that's really the goal of this week and moving forward. So we are going to be creating a printout of the take-home pledge that will be given to every student when they get to school. When they come into school. And we're also creating a reminder sticker, so that there's a little sample of it on the slide, so they can take the sticker, throw it on their computer, put it, wherever they'll see it in the morning right away, so they can a quick reminder to take it before coming to school. We also are going to be doing a lot of social media this week and moving forward. We did a little soft launch of it today because we're still finalizing that sticker logo type of thing. Just acknowledging that, we have more kids back in school today. It's been going really well over the last couple of weeks. Kids are following the procedures. And hey, remember, take this Panther Pledge. So it got really good traction on Facebook today. So you're going to see a lot more of that this week moving forward. Another part of the social media will be engaging and asking others who have followings to share it. So we'll be working with Mike Carr, athletic director, and sports teams, and getting it to the youth sports folks, just so we can get as much of an audience as we can to drive them to this idea. We're also, which I'm super excited about, and you see a very familiar face up there, we're doing a little video series. It's going to kick off with Raven, who's on this committee, and our school nurse, to talk about the importance of doing the pledge, taking the pledge every morning. And then that sweet face you see, the other one is Chloe Jacobson. She's one of our representatives. So we're engaging the student council and other students to help talk about why would you take the pledge, and what tricks do they have for making sure they remember to do it each morning. So that's going to be coming, and I'm super excited to work with the students on that. And then, of course, we have this on our website, and we are driving people to the website whenever we can. So in our weekly message last week, if you're a parent in the district, you would have received that, and there was a note about the Panther Pledge and a link to the website. And just if you want to look, it's right below OregonSD.org/Panther Pledge. And you can find the information. You can do a printable and get additional details about our health and safety protocols there. So those are the things that we have planned. And the video series, I should mention, is going to continue throughout the semester as well. It won't just be this week. The idea is to keep it on the top of people's minds, because it's certainly something that people, you get in a routine, hopefully you get in a routine and have the Panther Pledge in your routine, but it's always good to have reminders, especially from the students. So that's what we're working on.
Thank you, Erica. Oh, I think you're on mute, Drew.
Sorry. Anything you'd like to add, Leslie, in terms of what the district has been doing with regards to the community engagement?
No, but Brian Sam has a question in the chat feature that he posed to Erica. So I want to make sure that we answer that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you see it?
otherwise I can just read it too if you want.
That's
So,
fine.
Eric, I'm just wondering if you're not aware, or just wondering, are you using the CDC's toolkit that they've recently posted on the COVID-19 vaccine communication? If not,
Yes.
it's a great toolkit, and I'd highly suggest it. So.
Yes, I do have access to the toolkit, and I certainly look in there for messaging.
Okay.
We, of course, modify it to fit our, our
Exactly.
messaging and our look and feel and all that. But yes, that's absolutely something that I have access to. So thanks for asking.
You bet. Thanks.
Okay. So we'd like to open it up for, as you can see by the slide, for everyone on the medical working group to share a reaction to what you've heard, any additional considerations you'd like to share, or if you have any concerns for this. So we'll just do a round robin. Amy, I'll start with you, and Becky, you're up next, just to share any reactions, considerations, concerns. If you have none, that's fine. Just say pass, and we'll just make sure everyone has a voice, and then we'll open it up for a general discussion. Amy?
Yeah, Eric, I love what you've done with the social media. It's good information. As a staff person, I appreciate it. And as a parent, I've printed my checklist out and it's by the door. So I think it's fantastic. And I like the different media venues. And I like the idea of like other considerations. If you're doing this for the rest of the school year, just to include, an array of people. If you're videoing different people I'm thinking like 7th through 12th grade, tapping into those sports coaches, those music leaders, different leaders like that to do little snippets of videos. I like that.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Becky, and then we'll go to you, Matt.
Yeah, I think that all looks amazing. Well done, Erica. I have nothing else to add.
Okay, thank you, Matt, and then to John.
Ditto. Nice. I like it.
Man, a few words. Ditto. Like it. That's great. All right, John, and then Alice.
Yeah, I would agree. It looks very nice. I like the marketing approach as well, and I think you're off to a great start.
Okay, thanks, John. Alice, and then Aaron.
All right.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. It looks really nice. I think just making sure to keep messaging that kids with symptoms are such a small part of how COVID is spread, and that you can, the pledge is really focused on symptoms and not coming to school, but you can spread COVID without having symptoms. So just including that down the line too, in the message.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Alice. Aaron, and then Rick.
I agree. I think everything looks beautiful on there. My favorite part, because that's what we're discussing here, I think, is I love the sticker for that little just kind of reminder. I actually use my very own mindfulness sticker in the upper left-hand corner of my computer screen. So that's a great addition. I like that a lot.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Eric, and then Raven.
Yeah, just to reiterate, I think it's a really nice job with it, and I like the incorporation of the social media aspect.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Raven, and then Joanna.
I really love that we're including students into it, because we know that our kids are really influenced by their peers. So I love that aspect of it. Good job, Erica.
And Raven, what do you think about you being featured there in your picture?
Just amazing. I just
Oh, great. Joanna, and then Beatrice.
I think the work is great, Erica. It's absolutely awesome. I'm still thinking in the concepts of the making sure we reach through the cracks from the social determinants of health standpoint. The kids who and the families who don't have the best access to social media. I know our kids have the phones, but at the same time, like not everybody's got great connectivity. So just kind of the other avenues to make sure we reach those families. And then perhaps adding to the messaging, if we have not already, in addition with the Panther Pledge for the kids every day, just that quick reminder, if there's because kids don't always have symptoms, but anyone in your family sick, just that check And I mean, we've got the orchard, but with our orchard studies, I mean, it's always, we're talking about whole families sometimes, but just kind of that sort of quick reminder, anyone else in the family to just let us know if that can be incorporated as well in some way, shape, or form. But the big concern is like making sure we're able to reach into all the cracks to make sure that we're getting as many kids as possible.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Joanna. Beatrice, and then Brian, to see if you have anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, I really like it. I think you guys did a good job. And then to just kind of mirror what Dr. Bisgrove said, I was wondering, is this information available in like Spanish or for parents that don't speak English?
Thank you so much for asking that. I didn't mention that. Yes, it is. It is available in Spanish, and we have a wonderful translator who will connect with the families who have Spanish-speaking needs, and we'll get that to them. And the sticker will also be made in Spanish. I just didn't have it designed yet.
Fabulous.
Great. Thank you for that. Brian, anything else to add?
Yeah, I would just say, first off, great job on this. One thing I would be prepared for, hopefully you won't have to deal with this, but social media can turn into an ugly place very quickly. And so understanding how to engage and the level of engagement you want to do with posts that are of a differing opinion, it's something you want to think about ahead of time rather than reacting to it when it does happen, if it does happen. So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Brian. I don't have the full screen of everyone who's on. Are any other individuals on the working group that I didn't call on to date?
This is Evan. I'm just going to add one more thing in, and that's for fear of repeating something that's covered somewhere else. But is there specific guidance? I don't see anything on the pledge regarding if you were exposed to somebody who has since tested positive, because that's obviously, there must be guidance somewhere, but it's not on the pledge.
Correct. It is not on the pledge because the focus of the pledge that we had created was really to get kids to stay home if they're sick, especially the older ones. But there is certainly, Leslie, you might have to help me with the other component. We certainly have health and safety procedures and policies that I believe take care of that component.
We do, but I think to Evan's point, there's ways that we can make sure that we're doubling down on that communication part of it also.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Evan. Any other reactions, considerations, concerns from other members of the medical working group?
This is Katie Schmidt. I think it looks really good. I love the idea of like teamwork. It makes y'all feel kind of united and going towards something common, which I think is really important right now. So I think it looks really great. Great job, Erica.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Okay.
This is Jill. I agree with all the kudos that everyone is giving Erica. They are well deserved. I just wanted to put out there in terms of reaching out to other youth sports organizations that I got an email this past week from baseball. They're starting to register. So just an FYI in terms of Oregon baseball in town, Oregon youth baseball.
Okay. Thank you, Jill. All right. I think we've heard from all those who are present in the medical group. Any comments, discussions, follow-up, other thoughts beyond what Erica has provided us here with regarding the goal of ensuring that the community works together to keep our students in school safely? All right.
Ready?
Hearing none.
Okay.
Let's now transition to a discussion on mental health and
Absolutely. I think that the discussions that we've had related to mental health have been affirming. of our commitment to doing everything we can to support students in that realm of their well-being, because honestly, if things aren't going well there, then the learning isn't going to happen either. So the mental health of our kids is really the foundation for many other things. And consequently, we have tiers 1, 2, and 3, and you've seen that information before. Support plans for grade bands working all the way from kindergarten through grade 12. But just to give you some follow-up on it, and then we'll show you how it's actually working in one of the schools. We have follow-up related to our screener that we have in 3rd grade. And then we're moving forward with utilizing that screener in other areas. And we're glad that we did it, because while for the most part, it just affirmed that we were talking to with the right families regarding supports, but we did pick up additional families who weren't already getting services. So that is an important part of why we utilize a screener, was we continue to add more families into the fold for support services. Very closely related to what this group has spoken about, the importance of transition. Students who are entering buildings for the very first time and perhaps don't have supports in place because they don't have a connection to people yet, because they haven't even been in the building. So with that understanding, we have been working on our transition activities quite significantly, and we have been including in-person activities. For example, the next bullet, middle school and high school students, or ninth grade and 7th grade, anyone new to the building, so that could be new students also, for the middle school or the high school, have an opportunity to have an in-person small group tour this Wednesday. So we have transportation routes set so that students who are coming in for the tour are getting picked up in a bus if they need transportation. And we even have some time set aside for some evening tours with caregivers. And then we've been working on adding in additional in-person supports. And we also know how important that synchronous or real-time instruction is, where it's teacher and students together. So we're continuing to prioritize that. Another piece that I think is important, and it really has come out very strongly in the group, our focus on equity has been really very much present in this group also. And so when we took a look at who selected semester 2 phased restart versus semester 2 Oregon Online, and saw there was a lot of disproportional representation of our students who identified as Latinx or Black, or identified as 2 or more races, or Asian, and certainly our students who have an IEP, who are eligible for free or reduced lunch, or who receive English language services. All of those students, Oregon Online has a disproportionate number. And we really want to have a better understanding of why. And we know that surveys aren't always the best way to understand why, because people are very busy. So sometimes they fill them out, but they fill them out quickly without a lot of information, or sometimes it's just not high on a priority list because there's so much happening. Consequently, we're utilizing informative interviews where we are randomly selecting a sample, starting first with the families who selected Oregon Online, and then we'll move to families who selected phased restart. Principals and student services staff phone calling and having conversations, asking why is it that they made the choice they made, and what can we learn from what people tell us? Because we know that there is a lot to be learned through listening to people's stories. And then when you gather enough stories together, you can find some themes. And we want to know if there's anything that, any more that we could be doing that people would really appreciate or would be a real value added for people. And we also want to know if there's a reason perhaps other than the ones that, you know, we already know about, that some of our kids are starting to feel more comfortable at home than at school. It's probably related to health concerns, but is it something else? And those are the types of things that we want to know more about, because if there's something we need to change to make sure our environments are more comfortable for more kids, we want to know that. So we're in the middle of conducting the informative interviews now, which are really just conversations with people, because what they say, what they think really matters. It matters to us, and we want to gather that information to help ourselves be better for everyone. And then athletics. I know that the group overall was very mixed as to whether or not athletics should continue or competition should happen outside of Dane County. But honestly, the reason that athletic competitions are happening at the moment really is very much related to mental health concerns. But I wanted to give you an update on what's happening and how things are going. So we have a 2-tiered safety system, and to the best of our knowledge, we're the only school that's doing this. And many thanks to our athletic director and his staff for making this happen, and our students too, because by 9 a.m. Every day, our high school athletes need to complete an online health screener. And if they indicate they have a symptom, then any of the symptoms, right? So this is a very stringent level of whether or not you're able to attend practice, because any symptom means you stay home. Checking 2 symptoms means that the school nurse will be calling you and working through the next steps and whether or not you need to have a COVID test. So that's step 1, every day by 9 a.m. Step 2 is right before practice starts. The coaches do a screener yet again, so that there are 2 opportunities for students who aren't feeling well to not participate in practice or in a competition. In addition to that, of course, for practices, we have the masks and the physical distance, and the same for our bus rides. So this information, which is a week old, but this information was a week ago, we had 37 students who had missed a practice due to exhibiting some symptom. That doesn't mean that they were COVID positive. It just meant that because they had any symptom, we were asking them to stay home from practice. 16 students who were quarantined due to multiple symptoms, 3 who were quarantined due to close contact, and 4 of our students tested positive. The transmission in all 4 cases was not from school and not from sports. But we wanted to give you an update on how that was going too, and I looped it into the mental health piece because we find the 2 things to be very connected. Now, as we're talking about transition and how things are going for students and how it's connected to students and their mental health, we thought we could probably best give you information to react to by telling you the story of one school's transition to in-person learning. And I asked RCI staff members to be here with us tonight because unlike our students in grades 3 or 4, students in grades 3 or 4 were coming into schools that were already up and running, right? Because they've been up and running for our K2 students. RCI, the whole school opened. And so they had a pretty big lift for their back to school that happened a couple of weeks ago. And I'm inviting RCI Principal Cindy Olander to kick this off and to also do the introductions for the staff members who agreed to be here tonight. And thank you, all of you RCI staff members who are here.
Well, thank you so much for having us tonight. I brought like the best team possible. So I'm just going to take a minute to introduce everyone. I have Stephen Blue, who's our associate principal here. Sarah Hughes, who is our school psychologist. Emily Splan and Colleen Schell, who are our school counselors. Teresa Nicholas, who is our K-6 school social worker. Emily Zaborski, who is one of our 6th grade teachers. And Michelle Kretschmann, who is our K-6 SEL coach. So everything we say tonight is just a combination of every staff member working together. So we'll go through our steps and then we'll open it up for questions. So this is a quote that frequently we start our staff meetings with, just to sit down and just to reflect and to move forward. So we thought we'd share it with you because that's been kind of the premise of how we've started our meetings. Some of this could be, you could have heard this information before, so if I'm repeating myself, I do apologize in advance. So when Dr. Bergstrom asked us to tell the story about how we opened up and phased back in, we really started, I couldn't start we had to start from the beginning. So from the beginning at RCI, we've had the whole child relationship focus. We intentionally, every single day, virtual or in person, we set aside a social emotional learning time. So this is about 25 minutes a day that we're with our students. We focus on mindful minutes, equity lessons, our second step lessons, which focus on gaining confidence, setting goals, decision-making, collaboration, navigating difficult situations, and really just building relationships with trusted adults in the building. From the very beginning of the school year, we heard from our staff and our students and our parents that there was a need for more intentional clubs where students could be socialized and be with each other. So from the moment we heard that, we went and created all these clubs based on what students were asking us to do. We did daily breakfast or Wednesday breakfast clubs, workout clubs, coding clubs, drawing clubs, yoga clubs, multicultural student union clubs, Among Us, daily lunch bunches. I could keep going on. But really, when a student had an idea, the RCI staff took it and made it possible for our students. When we started the school year, our student service staff got together and we really worked to support our staff in talking about our students' academic needs as well as their mental health needs. So we'd meet with every staff member every single week, and we get together, and it wasn't just, how are your kids doing? We actually talked about names. How is this student doing? What support does this family need? And from there, we were able to make either group plans or individual plans to support that student and or family. Many of you guys know about the mentorship program we have here. I think we have about 23 students district-wide, a lot at RCI, where they have an adult mentor that could come in person with them, even when we were shut down, and or be virtual. And we did have the learning support hubs as well. So that's kind of our story where it started. So once we knew we were going to be back in person, we took it very serious at RCI, and we started to talk to our staff and students about what they needed in order to feel comfortable. All of this was done by this amazing team that are here with us today. Our school counselors and their student service staff created a virtual tour that was updated and shared with every single student that was coming into the building. We had week-long lessons for PBIS. So we listened to what all of our students' fears were about coming back into school and seeing our school, or all the questions they had. And Stephen Blue and the PBIS team really got together, and they decided we are dedicated 1 week before we come back to school where students could be with their homeroom teacher to really learn about everything that they need to know. So we really talked about social distancing. What does wearing a mask look like? What does hand washing look like? If you ride a bus, what does bus behavior look like? What if a parent drops you off? What door do you come in? How do you go to the bathroom? What if you feel sick? All those things we kind of take for granted because pre-COVID, we just knew how to do it. And when you work in a school, when pre-COVID, you teach students you're all in one area for safety. You only use this door for safety. If you have all these rules that are really ingrained in students from their educational background, that now we had to disrupt that learning and actually teach them something different. So though it might sound silly, what door do you go in? The door they enter breaks every rule they've ever followed in their K-6, history. So it was a really big deal. And I've even had students say, "Are you sure I should use the back hallway?" Yes, we're pretty sure you should. So we spent a week really answering those questions for the students. Another thing we did to help prepare, and I didn't put it on this list, is our amazing staff created individual schedules for each student. So they knew what they were going to look like when they were at school, but they also knew the expectations of when they weren't at school and how to access their classroom. So every student and parent got a copy of their schedule. Once we came in person, we really focused on building that relationship because we realized our students were very comfortable in that virtual format and sharing information with each other. But once we were face to face, we had to stop what we were doing. We had to slow down to go fast with our students. Our student service staff also, and I probably am going to forget some groups, have our groups going and off the ground. We have CBIT mental health groups, stress and coping groups. I'm forgetting a couple of them, so I'm sorry. If you have questions about the groups we're offering for mental health supports for our students, we can talk about those in a few minutes. And we also have one-on-one student support groups that if that's what is needed, that we give to them. Knowing that we were coming back, we were very focused on our students, but we have also been very focused on our staff as well. Because it was a transition for all of us. So we spent a lot of time having open forums and discussions and times where staff members could pop in and ask any question they needed or really dive deeper into topics that they felt uncomfortable about or needed more information. I know Michelle Kretschmann, along with some other student service staff, is offering a year-long professional development on Onward, really talking about resiliency skills and like really that collaboration. And also we have a really strong compassionate school team who we've always focused on our students and our staff. But when we talk about the staff focus, we provided a lot of literature for our staff, mindfulness activities. They did a great job and did mix it up lunches where, because we're so working with the students, sometimes we forget to like sit down and eat lunch with a peer virtually. That can like rejuvenate us and feel better. And also just really being there to listen and give feedback and just be that whole team mentality. So there's a lot of preparation that went into the in-person. Oh, there's one of our favorite pictures. It's like the second week. It's a 5th grade classroom, Miss Regale. So it's one of the AM cohorts. They were super, super excited when we took the picture. So as we're growing, we're really only in week number 3, and we're anticipating how we do need to continue to grow and change. Some things we're seeing is students that may be hungry or coming to school hungry, figuring out how we can support them and what places we can do that safely for them and finding out if there's a need that we don't know about. Really looking at movement and how students can move about the building and get their bodies moving. I think when the weather is nicer, it's easier to do more movement in big areas, but sometimes when it's cold and as it is and maybe icy, it's a little bit harder. We're really focusing right now on like recreation of our learning hubs. So once we went back into person, our learning hub stopped just so we could transition in. But now we have our first person started for a semi-hub starting next Monday, and we have a list of students of how we're going to bring them in to support them. So we're once again going slow to test our systems to see where we have room and where we can grow together. Those mental health support groups, we meet with student service team and every single week, and we really talk about our students and what they need and what we need to do to support them. And we're also looking at getting off the ground the creation of virtual supports. So if a student is at school in the morning and they're at home in the afternoon and they have an assignment to work on, we found that when we created school-wide study halls, they weren't well attended because the student did not have a connection with that staff member. But now we have certain staff members around the building, very visible in teams. So we're going to open up some online live times for students to get that support. So they could email me and say, hey, hey, Cindy, your son is struggling with this assignment. They can log in at this time and get live help from this person. So we can make those connections. And some other observations are our students are following the guidelines, and those who are struggling we're supporting them and working as teams to help them be successful. They really appear to be comfortable and they're happy. Like sometimes like when they come in the morning, they may be a little sleepy or like it's chippy and I don't want to walk around the back of the school, Miss Olander, but I said, you're young and able, this is great. Get a couple extra steps. And at RCI overall, we feel that the transition to in-person was successful. And we know that we just have to grow and change when their needs grow and change. So we're anticipating the unknown, I guess. So RCI team, did I forget to mention anything that we talked about? Because this is a lot of their work put onto paper. So they've done just an amazing job. Good. All right. I guess that was like Mach 3, you know. Sorry, I got a little nervous. This is a great group of humans. So are there any questions or comments or?
Yeah, let's open it up. Anybody can start if you have any questions of Cynthia or share any reactions, considerations. Who would like to begin?
I actually have a question. You mentioned early, I think it was Dr. Bergstrom who mentioned it, that just reacclimating kids to person-to-person discussions, communication, I think I heard was not a concern, but something that everybody is having to work on. Did I hear that wrong, or is it, you know, I think we all have found that people who use the internet a lot to communicate differently in person. And did I hear that we're experiencing some of that adjustment in the classes that have started over the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think it's about getting to know each other again, because their group was one group in the virtual land, but then their group shifted when they went to AM PM. So it's really just reacclimating to that group, which is kind of normal when you switch like semester classes. So I would attribute it to that. But I also do think there's a level of every student has a different level of being comfortable at school. There are some students, like an example, someone was playing like a music video of something for a movement break. And the student said, that makes me feel very uncomfortable. There's too many people in that crowd. And she's like, that was from 1982. It's okay. So like, it also depends on, there are some students who are very nervous based on their experience being in school. And there are some students who are very comfortable. So that's, we're working with that as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I can speak to, I'm going to speak here as a parent, as a little less so than and also speak to what Tim was asking about as a parent of a child who has some difficulty with communication and socialization. And Maya is enjoying being back at school. She's also, we're seeing some of her nervous habits come back out again. She tends to pluck her eyelashes. They had grown back, now they're gone. This is an ebb and flow, but she's acclimating. I think it's always as Cindy pointed out, it's a learning curve for all of them. I mean, this has been a roller coaster year in everybody's family, and I know that Maya's always the center of our ebb and flow, but I think that from what we're seeing her in the communication with her teachers at RCI, it's been an all hands on deck effort. So speaking from the parent aspect, I mean, for our child, it's going as well, I think, as it possibly could, and she's doing better than we had expected, which I think is really a testament to how much effort and work and planning is being put in by the team. So thank you a lot.
Okay. Thanks, Joanna. Katie, is it, yeah, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I wanted to just acknowledge, hi Cindy, thanks for your presentation. My fifth grader's back in school too, but I think Tim, to answer one of your questions as well, I think not only are these kids going back to school, but fifth grade is unique in that they're combining the different elementary schools. And so you've got kids from Brooklyn, Prairie View, and Netherwood. So my son is incredibly social, but he just knew his friends. And so to come then, they've had an especially big challenge, I think, bringing kids back to school after 11 months, but also then merging 3 different schools. And I think that that's going to be a different level of anxiety than any other school. And I think from what I've heard and seen, they've done an exceptional job.
Okay. Thank you, Katie.
As a parent of a fifth grader also, I think that you guys have done wonderful. I have a child who has anxious tendencies, and I had enough information in order to support that and kind of guide him to let him know if there's any questions that you're going to have, there's going to be a teacher there to answer any question that you have, because safety is priority. And as I drop him off and pick him up, that's exactly what I see. He knows exactly what to do, exactly where to go. And if not, on an off chance, there's always somebody there. I do agree. I think that it is a unique situation in that it's all of the schools coming together. And I think just the planfulness and being very, very purposeful with all of it was very, very clear. And I think that eased a lot of parents and children's nerves. So I think that you guys have been doing phenomenal work. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Erin. All right, let's open it up to others. I'm just gonna, Jill, maybe we could invite you to share any reactions, considerations, or concerns, and then we'll go to Evan.
Specific to RCI, are we talking about?
Well, it doesn't have to be specific to RCI, but we're talking about just what the district has been doing to address the mental health needs of students, and the transition of the 3 to 6 students in particular.
Okay. I thank Cindy too for the presentation. I have a 5th grader too, so he's very happy to be back at school. I don't have any concerns about RCI. I think they've done a really nice job. In terms of a broader consideration, and if this is not the right time to say that, I'm totally okay with that. I'm aware that other schools are doing different things, right? And I totally agree with what other folks have said in terms of we're not going to do something just because someone else is doing it. And at the same time, I think it's important for us to recognize that our kids are likely aware of this, and it may be tough. You know, for Stoughton is having a very different kind of return to school than Oregon is. And I know a lot of our Oregon kids are friends with Stoughton kids based on sports teams and that kind of stuff, proximity. So just as an example, to have those conversations and awareness and the impact on the mental health of our kids, knowing that some kids get to do X, Y, and Z, we don't get to do X, Y, and Z, and what kind of arises from that.
Jill, do you have any suggestions of how to respond or work with a student who compares their situation with another district?
I think that really varies depending upon how old the kid is, right? Because it will impact kind of their development and level of understanding will impact that. I think for every kid, though, you want to validate that, yeah, this is hard. You know, it's hard to not have what you want to have, and you miss your friends, and virtual learning isn't right for you, or whatever's kind of wanting them, you know, making them feel that pull or that sadness, or they might be worried about their friends that are going to be in school more often. You know, some of us have spoken about some kids being more anxious. So I just try and remind kids that, you know, adults are doing the best they can in trying to make these choices, and to acknowledge that there's a lot of grief and loss. That's what this past year has been about in a lot of ways. And so to create space for their feelings around it. But in some ways it feels like it's getting increasingly harder as more and more districts, not only in Dane County, just throughout the state, are going back more. So it feels more challenging in some ways.
Just quickly, this is an observation we've seen at our house. I think every district, though, is having its own challenges. Just to quickly use Stoughton as an example, my husband, even though he's home with our children, is still signed on to get sub calls for Oregon and Stoughton. And in the last week, he has gotten multiple phone calls from Stoughton for teachers who have decided to take the entire month of February off. I mean, he just finally turned it off. And so there are all sorts of reactions everywhere where kids are getting disrupted in multiple different ways. I mean, every district is going to have different challenges, whether it's going back or teachers up and leaving now that there's a date on when they might get a vaccine. I mean, I think every district is going to have its challenges, and we go forward with our own.
Yep. Okay. Evan, what are your thoughts, reactions, considerations? Again, not just RCI, but just all the efforts that the district has been doing to address the mental health needs of the students.
Drew, I think Evan had to leave a little early to attend an orientation for his 8th grader.
Okay, there we go. Good, thank you. All right, if Brian is here, maybe we could turn to you, and then Beatrice. So, Brian, thanks.
There, I can use technology.
There we go.
So I don't have a whole lot to add to this conversation. I do want to emphasize one thing that was brought up, and I do have. I've got some data to go behind it, and it has to do with the grief counseling that is going to be needed. I'm sure is already being seen, unfortunately. For the state, we work with our life insurance vendor on a number of different things. And one of the things we asked them recently was, what's the impact been on what we call excess deaths? And this is it's not a lighthearted subject. There's no way around this. But what we've seen so far, just in our population over the past year, is a 7% increase in what we call excess deaths. In other words, deaths on top of what you would normally trend, okay? And we're seeing this not only with COVID-related deaths, but also deaths that are being caused by what we call despair and isolation or economic impact, and also deaths that are being associated with normal medical conditions that are not being treated appropriately because you physically can't get in to the doctor. So with this type of excess death, it has all sorts of implications. But one thing that's obviously going to have, not only with the students, but also with the teachers that are working there, there is a higher likelihood that an individual is going to be going through a traumatic event. And it's something to keep in mind with any approach that we have here. And I know that grief counseling in particular is probably a hot item right now and difficult to get enough counselors for. I would encourage the district to think of any creative ways to try and get additional grief counselors in now. And if that means working with institutions that train these individuals, because I know and psychiatrists, please forgive me, I don't remember the requirements on this, and it was a different state, but there's a certain amount of working hours you have to get to in order to get a fully licensed, be fully licensed. It might be something we want to look into to get additional counselors in the lineup, I guess is the way to put it. That's what I have. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I think we have 2 counselors who have the extra accreditation for grief. Is that right? Or is it just our counselor from Brooklyn? I'm looking at Candace's little box. I don't know if Candace has the answer.
I don't know if I have the answer. I do know that our counselor in Brooklyn has gone through additional certifications, but I think all of our staff are able to manage the grief counseling that's happening. Whether or not we have enough of them will be something that we continue to look at.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you for that, Brian. Good. Beatrice, and then we'll go to Raven.
I don't have any concerns. Thank you, Cindy, for the presentation. I have a 3rd grader. I don't have anybody at RCI yet, but he is so happy to be back at school.
Oh, good.
Great. Thank you, Raven. Or Beatrice, sorry. Raven, and then Eric.
I don't think I have anything significant to add other than RCI has been doing an amazing job with transition. The staff has been amazing there. There's always going to be some bumps, but it's been is way smoother than I thought it would be. So I'm happy for all that staff there. Thank you, Cindy, for presenting that.
Thank you. Eric, and then we'll go to Alice.
Yep. Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative, and I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Alice, and then go to John.
Similar theme to the rest. Cindy, that was a great presentation, and it really just comes through how much you're looking out for the social emotional health of your students in addition to their physical health. So thanks.
Thank you. John, and then we'll go to Matt.
Number one, I think there's a very nice comprehensive plan going on here, which is very impressive, reassuring. So kudos to all of you on top of that. The other thing, though, is I'm profoundly disturbed by the data of the disparity between race and ethnic groups. There is a big problem here. And I think it's not necessarily a school district, but I think it's a community problem and a perception. And this is something that I think really needs attention to, particularly when we're talking about culturalization, getting people back in, the mental health benefits. And when you have certain groups, 50% avoiding that, that is telling us something about the school district and our community. And I think we need to really pay attention to that. Thank you.
We agree, John. That's one of the reasons we're doing those interviews, is there's got to be information behind those numbers.
Yeah, and I really applaud the efforts to do the outreach and get that information directly from the key informants there in the community.
Great. Thank you, John. Matt, and then Becky.
Yeah, first, Colleen added a thing in the chat. I just wanted to call it out in case people didn't see it, that they partner with Grace and Face Kids. My only comment was to get at one of the things that was in the presentation, that quote about the staff and school being the anchor for the kids. I think part of that is the staff needs to have their feet under them. So I would want to hear a little bit more about some of the resources that we're applying towards the staff. I saw a bullet point, I think, on the last slide that there were some staff resources in play at RCI, but just screeners, making sure that they have all the support that they need. If they don't have their feet under them, they're not going to be an anchor for these kids. So I'm sure you guys are doing it, but wanted to call that out.
Yeah. Cynthia, do you want to respond in a little more detail on what you're offering the staff?
Yeah. So in terms of like counseling and that kind of support, we're not doing that, but we are sharing a lot of resources with our staff about self-care and providing that time for them to help self-care and talking about it. I think the main thing, I can only speak for my building when we go through this, is that when we have our weekly staff or our weekly meetings with teams, sometimes it's also it's the check-in on the staff to see where they're at and how they're feeling and what resources that you need. Though it's student focused, you learn when you're working with your teams, you can hear what they need and what we can do to provide it. So when there's a need, we have student services and an administrator there, and we talk, and we figure it out, and we problem solve together, so the staff is never alone trying to solve a problem. During that time we spent a lot of time getting our plans in our staff hands, so they could read the information, we'd talk about it, we'd have forums. So I think one of the most successful things, and I don't think by any means that we hit it out of the park, because I always think we can do more for our staff, was really having those listening sessions and hearing their feedback and having them be a part of the decision-making process. When they made the decisions, everyone owned it together. And I think some of the things that they have been felt very supportive about, they were very nervous, but Dr. Bergstrom in the district has done a great job listening and giving feedback to them and also hearing where they're at. We help them by giving them time to collaborate, which is something that they're always asking for. How can we collaborate? Because the student growth emotionally and academically is at the core of what they do. So the time for collaboration and reflection is actually given to them, which helps ground them in their decision making and actually feeling like they have control over their educational environment. I think another thing that's been really beneficial, I know it may sound small, but securing 2 to 3 building subs in our building, staff, they're not constantly worried, what if I get sick? What if my child's sick? When something comes up, they reach out immediately and we're there to provide them. So like the kind of support and counseling that we're giving to students and the connections is very different than staff. But it's the responsiveness and listening to them and making them equal decision-making partners in how we do things has been helpful. Did I answer your question, Matt?
Yeah, it was more of a statement. It's fine. I don't need to know all the details. And also, Brian put a comment in the chat too. Just want to make sure people saw that.
Thank you.
About benefits.
Right.
Thanks for the response, though.
Yep. Okay, Becky, what are your reactions? And then Amy.
Well, as we, mental health is definitely not my area of expertise, but I've appreciated everything that Katie and especially Jill have brought to this committee. I think it's been wonderful, and it sounds like you guys are doing everything above and beyond for that. So kudos to all of you. I think my only issue is just to kind of prep for the future is I don't want you guys to think that I'm this crazy vaccine girl, but just prepping for when the teachers do get vaccinated, hopefully sooner rather than later, just prepping for, that second vaccine and maybe staging when teachers get it, just because, for every person who doesn't have any side effects from the second vaccine, there's people who are down and out and probably should not be going to work the following day. So just kind of keeping that in the back of everyone's minds. I don't know if 2 or 3 subs secured for a school would be enough for that. It sounds like probably not. And, Joanna was saying her husband getting all of the calls for Stoughton. I just think it would probably just having a plan in place for that.
I'm glad you brought that up, Becky, because we've been hearing quite a bit about that, to plan on 10 to 15% of the staff being gone the day after that second shot. Gina, our HR director, has been working very hard trying to find routes to vaccination. And one of the suggestions was perhaps holding an asynchronous teaching day so that everybody could get their vaccine on a Friday, so that we didn't have to worry about substitute teacher coverage when we knew right away it wouldn't be enough. So,
great.
Anyway, that's one plan. There may need to be more.
Yeah.
There may need to be a lot more.
Yeah. Thank you, Becky, for that. Amy, any reactions, considerations, concerns you'd like to share?
Yeah, I guess 2. One from a parent perspective, and then also working in the 712 buildings. I think, yeah, Cindy, I appreciate your presentation. And I too had a 6th grader at RCI. And I would say for some of those hesitant learners going into the building, I think just getting those couple days under them makes a huge difference. I think we have to remember, like, this is September all over again, and it often takes a month for kids to really learn routine. And our kids are only in the building, maybe 10 hours a week. So I think that's just something to keep in mind too, is those routines take time. And here we are, it's February, and it's going to take, time for those kids to learn, but they're also adaptable. So I think that's also a strength our young learners have. Mm-hmm. And to be responsive. I think that's something, district-wide, 7 through 12, we are also responsive to our students' needs, our mental health needs, and just doing as much foreshadowing as we can, and we have been, and will continue that. I know the 7th through 12th grade levels. And I was going to also mention, when I think of our younger learners, just any kind of foreshadowing or predictions we can do for them. I know even there was some recent bus changes for some of our students, and for some of those younger students, that is challenging, but that's okay too, right? Like, there's going to be bumps in the road, and those are good learning opportunities for our students, as long as they have those skills, or those adults to help guide them along the way. So that's all.
Okay. Great. Thank you. We've got 2 minutes for if anybody would like to share any comments on what has been offered, and then Leslie needs to wrap up and foreshadow our next meeting.
We have two hands raised, Drew,
Okay.
Krista, and Teresa.
Yeah, I don't see them, so please go ahead, Krista.
Yeah, I really wanted to echo John's comment. You know, the school board and the administration has worked for months and months and months to this point of coming back into school and the educational model and educational delivery. And so when we look at other districts are doing a concurrent model, meaning they're teaching in person and virtual at the same time, engagement of any student is really hurt at that point in time if a teacher, number one, is trying to do teaching to both groups at one time. And so one of the reasons that we chose the model we did with cohorts or kids only in from 8:30 to 12:30 is that we have quite a large group of students who are online, and we wanted to make sure that they had engagement time with the teacher that was not while a teacher was focusing on kids in the building. And now as you look at our equity numbers, that would exacerbate that. So we're looking at kids that are not in school that maybe are in groups that potentially are not doing as well or is not engaged. And if we would have gone to a concurrent model, that would have exacerbated that issue. And so I think that's really important that people understand that there was a lot of thought and a lot of looking at other schools and visiting other schools and their models. And it's why we chose the one we did, because student engagement, which helps with mental health, and also an equity issue. So I just really want to make sure that people are kind of aware of that, why we chose what we did. It was for mental health, engagement, and equity.
Great. Thank you, Krista.
Teresa and then Aaron.
Okay, thanks.
I'll be super quick. I just want to say I'm so proud to be on the team at RCI and seeing that presentation. I'm just puffing my chest up with pride. And I keep thinking about all the hard work that Colleen and Emily have done, our two school counselors. And it's National School Counselor Week this week. So I just need to give a shout out to them and all the school counselors for the hard work they do.
Thank you for that plug for them, Teresa.
Very nice.
Hey, Emily and Colleen.
You are so sweet. Thank you.
All right, now Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on Dr. Tempday and Krista's comments here. I love the idea of what you're terming informative interviews in general. I love that you guys are starting with your Oregon Online learners for that. Being a person about perspectives and mindset kinds of things. I also want us to look at that as an opportunity for connection, because that's exactly what that is, right? So less about information gathering and more about connecting. And to go along with that, Cindy talked a lot about the different things that they're doing within RCI and across the schools, I'm assuming, right? Is that there's a lot of opportunity for connections. It's been a recommendation within here. So what is happening in addition to these interviews with the Oregon Online learners in order to kind of help support some of that connection?
What's happening with Oregon Online? Well, first of all, the good part is K-6 or students have the Oregon Online teachers are assigned to a class because of, I'll talk about that in just a minute as part of the wrap up. But our Oregon Online kids in K through 6, nothing really changed other than perhaps they had an extra student or two added to their classroom or something with the shift, but they were able to maintain that same connection with the teacher that they had at the beginning. And I think that was a really important piece and certainly one of our priorities, right? Because it probably would have been easier to contract with a company to provide online instruction for our students, but we wanted them to be with our teachers, with the connection to their school district, because we thought that this has got to be a year that we're building engagement and not losing kids and not sending them off for somebody else to teach them. They're our kids, right? So connection with them has been a giant priority from the beginning. We even hired 4 additional teachers to be able to make it happen.
Okay, one of our working agreements is that we end on time, and I notice it's 7:13. So Leslie, if you could take it from there, and if anybody else
can do speed talk, just one second. Here we go. So I just wanted to give you all a bit of an update on our next step, which is grades 7 through 12, and it's exciting. It's a week from today that they are coming back. And you can see from the slide that there is an approach as a district where everybody has an OSD teacher. Lessons are designed specifically for the mode. You can't just flip back and forth between in-person and online with the same lessons. Lessons have to be designed very differently depending on the mode that you are offering the lesson in, which gets to what we're asking of our staff. And one of the things that we're doing to support our staff, honestly, are the collaboration days on Wednesdays, because we're asking them in some cases to do twice the work. And so they need that time to work together, because when they're working together, it's definitely better for everyone. And then finally, to make sure that whatever mode we're in, that it's responsive teaching and learning that is focusing in on that individual child. So for grades K through 6, you have phased restart teachers, in-person teachers, and you have separate teachers who are doing Oregon online only. But for grades 7 through 12, because it gets really complicated with how they're licensed, they're not licensed to be able to teach every subject. Teachers of grades 7 through 12 are only licensed to teach the subject they teach. Consequently, we couldn't just set aside Oregon online teachers. We needed to combine them. So grades 7 through 12, all of their learning is still in the Google Classroom. And then if you are in phased restart and you're coming into school, that's when the teachers are doing the individual conferencing or the small group instruction or the small group projects or those things where they're taking the content and making meaning of it. That's happening in person, in groups or individually. And then our Oregon Online students are still getting that individualized instruction. They're getting it in the afternoon. So our phased restart kids are there until 12:30. Teachers have lunch, and then they go with our Oregon Online kids. So as you can imagine, the teachers are really, really busy, but it's because we're aligning ourselves to what we know is important. And that is to be responsive to our phased restart and our Oregon Online students. And then I just wanted to give you an update on next week, or our next meeting, which 2 weeks from today makes it February 15th. We'll be able to tell you a little bit about how week 1 went for our grades 7 through 12. We're all super excited about this. Share some information that we may have gathered from our informative interviews, which honestly, to Erin's point, is just a fancy way of saying having a really good conversation and making connections with people, better understanding where they're at and what they need. And then finally, I'm leaving a little bit of room open for topics that arise as the landscape is constantly shifting. So in 2 weeks, there may be things that have come out or things that have happened that I need to include in the agenda because we really would like your opinion on it. As you've seen, I hope you've seen from tonight, the input that you're giving is significantly influencing what we're putting in place for our students. And I think that's it, Mr. Howick. I told you I could be fast.
You are fast. Wonderful. Thanks to all for your extra 2 minutes of the evening, and we look forward to seeing and working with you in 2 weeks. Take care.